But because now I tell anybody doing a doc, tourniquet on spending.
Absolutely.
Crank that tourniquet on your spending and don't. And I would even now do Zoom calls, whereas 6 months ago I would have gone, no, you got to fly to
absolutely
Detroit and get the interview. Now I would just record the Zoom because the viewer is used to it.
This episode is brought to you by the best-selling book, Rise of the Film Entrepreneur, How to Turn Your Independent Film into a Money-Making Business. Learn more at filmbizbook.com. I'd like to welcome to the show Jordan Brady, man. How you doing, Jordan?
Oh, great, Alex. Thank you for having me.
No, thank you for coming on the show. I had the pleasure of going onto your great podcast about commercial directing and all the cool things you talk about on your show. And I'm a fan. I'm a fan of what you do, and I'm a fan of all the stuff that you're doing for the commercial side of the business. And I've never actually had an episode dedicated to the commercial world, which is funny because I got my start in the commercial world as a commercial director and music video director, and my first jobs were in the commercial side of the business. So
it's a great way to cut your teeth.
It is, especially when we were coming up, which was, we're of similar vintages. So the game's a bit different than it is than back then. The budget's a little bit tighter nowadays than they were back in the 90s. But yeah, so before we get started, how did you get into this ridiculous business?
I was a stand-up comedian in the comedy boom of the 80s. Dropped out of school, hit the road, and I did every state. I've been to like 300 or 400 cities, every state, including Alaska, Hawaii, except Maine. I've never been to Maine. And I worked clubs and colleges. And then I came to LA with a pit stop in San Francisco. And I was there just like 6 or 8 months and go, you know what? This is the best city in the country to live, but not to be in entertainment. Beyond what I could do there. And I'm sure somebody from San Francisco, I call it Frisco because it pisses people off. I moved to LA and I started working in television. And then I hosted a game show, which is a natural progression from stand-up comedian to being a game show host. And I was a bad actor. And then the more I worked in television, the more I started loving behind the camera. So I did what you got to do. I wrote a film.
But then how did you go from that to commercial directing, which is a bit of a, there's not a lot of stand-ups doing commercial directing.
It's interesting. When I was trying to raise money for my first indie film called Dill Scallion, it's like a country Spinal Tap. Okay. So we're talking late 90s, when the Soderberghs and the Quintons and the Clerks,
Kevin Smith,
everybody,
John Singleton, Spike Lee,
they all did the thing. Who was the guy that owned the bar and Harvey came in?
Oh, that would be Troy Duffy. Yes, Troy Duffy. Yes,
I actually love those movies, by the way,
and I also love his documentary Overnight, which was it's mandatory for every filmmaker to watch Overnight.
I took my son Jake to see that movie with me.
Which one, Boondock or Overnight?
No, Overnight.
Okay.
Overnight, when he was like, maybe 12 or 13, because we were hanging during the day, and I go, hey, this is going to be a little over your head, but, he grew up on set, my kids. Mm-hmm. And my other son's a director. Mm-hmm. He's 25. He's shooting a music video today.
Awesome.
Ben. So anyway, we go to see Overnight, and when we walked out, there was a producer I had done a movie with. He goes, why did you brought your son? I go, he can handle it. And my son goes, yeah, I kind of got it. Don't worry. I get what's going on. But I love that. So when I was raising money, I had already done promos. This is an interesting piece of cartilage. As a comedian, I did a lot of stuff on Comedy Central. And I hosted an MTV game show. So I knew those people, and I started doing promos. Like I would write and produce and direct promos for Comedy Central, which was great that they were in New York, because in LA, they would just give me what seemed like a bag of money, like 20, 30 grand. I would make this film and send it to them, and they go, great. One of them was with Dave Chappelle, this young 25-year-old kid.
Never heard of him.
Yeah. And one was Kathy Griffin, who was like in the alt comedy scene. So I knew those comedians and I knew how to direct and produce. And they were my film school. And then I started doing it for NBC out here, and I hosted a show on NBC with Mario Lopez. It was Name Your Adventure. Yeah,
never
heard of him. The same, by the way.
I know. I used to watch him on Saved by the Bell. The dude is like him, Cher, and J-Lo. They all bathe in the same blood of infants.
They're vampires.
I think they are. There's no question.
So basically, NBC had Mario during the Saved by the Bell years. It was called Name Your Adventure, and a kid would write in a letter, and we would take them on these adventures. But they needed a second banana for things that were too risky per the insurance
for Mario
to do. So Jordan Brady went shark diving. Jordan Brady jumped out of a plane. Jordan Brady went to space camp, and anything that was kind of dangerous, I would do.
You were the stunt double. That's awesome.
So I started directing that show, which was, it was a life-changing moment. I went to the producers and said, hey, because NBC set me up with an interview, and I go, hey, I know I'm supposed to be this host. I show up and I do funny things, but I really want to direct. And the guy almost laughed me out of the room. And to this day, Scott Friedland is one of my good friends. He said, okay, if you produce, I need producers. I don't need directors. If you produce 6, you can direct 1. And by season 3, I was directing more than I was even hosting.
That's
so
awesome.
To answer your question, I'm doing that, and I'm doing these promos, and I go, well, now I wrote a feature. So I write this. It's a country Spinal Tap, right? And I'm going to make the movie. This is probably interesting to your fans. Look, I pitched the movie to Hollywood Pictures with that sentence: country western Spinal Tap. 4 words. Sold. In the room. Wrote the script. Got paid. Goes into turnaround. Executives leave. I buy the script back, and they charge me an extra $15,000 interest, dinners, trips we had taken. We went to Vegas to see a comedian to star in it. It was crazy.
All right.
So I'm pitching these production companies in the late 90s. Will you invest in my movie? All production companies. Propaganda had a film division, right? HSI, who ended up making indie film with. HKM was a company. Who were the others?
Oh, God, there was a bunch of them out there.
All the commercial production companies wanted to. And one of them goes, we're not giving you any money for your movie, but we have this commercial for you to direct. So I did it. And then, and people hate this part of the story, I'm at my same son's plural daycare center in Hollywood. And one of the moms, her son is the best friend of my kid. She goes, Jordan, you know, I know you're making your film. Do you want to do commercials? I'm like, I love commercials. I wanted to be Darren Stevens when I was a kid. You know, I've been directing promos. And she goes, well, yeah, you got to come over and meet our people. And she just worked in the office. She was the manager, not in the creative side. They signed me.
Who was they? Who was they?
It's called HKM, which was a big company in the 80s and 90s. And I was at HKM for a couple of years and bounced around, and I've been doing it ever since. That was 1998.
And that's Hollywood. That is one of the things that happens here in LA when you just bump into the person who's your best friend of your kid at those are those
park bench.
Those are those kind of ridiculous LA stories that pisses people off. But you know what? I've been involved with those stories. And I used to be the one pissed off because I was from Florida. And I would hear these stories and I would watch movies about it. And I was like, it must be amazing to be out here in LA. Oh my God, it's great. And I got to tell you, I've been out here now 13 years or so, 13, 14 years. And I got to say, the first 2 years, the streets were paved with gold. Like everywhere, I was so excited to be here. And like everywhere you turn, there was a post house, there was a studio, there was like, oh, is that an actor I know? Oh my God, everyone has Final Draft in Starbucks open. this is where the action is. Oh my God. And that was 2 years. And I was working and I was doing a lot of posts and I was directing and I was really enjoying it. But then after like a couple years, the sheen starts to go off of LA. It just starts to, and then all of a sudden you start finding yourself, you're like, why do I love it here? I don't understand. I do love it. I do like it here and I want to stay here, but I don't know why anymore. And then all of us, and we were talking about this before the show, is like, if you want the perfect analogy of LA, it's watch the Oscars on television and then and watch Hollywood Boulevard, how it looks during the Oscars, and then come and visit Hollywood Boulevard when the Oscars aren't there. And that's a perfect representation, because what happens in Hollywood Boulevard, sir? You've been here for a minute.
Well, you on TV during the Oscars, there's Klieg lights and limousines and
red carpets
and fans cheering and flashes going off. And then within 17 hours, that same street is populated with teenage runaway hippies that smell like patchouli, a guy with a needle in his arm, and another guy dressed as a mermaid with a jockstrap on his head. It's lunatics and that is shops now.
But by the way, that is the good part of Hollywood Boulevard. If you start going down a few blocks, it starts getting a little shady.
Yeah. Funny.
Because the tourist area is what you're talking about, like where the Chinese theater is. And that's the touristy area. You go down 3-4 blocks, you better hold on to your purse, especially at night.
I feel bad for families that have spent their
money to fly
life
out here.
Savings to come out and vacation and go to Hollywood. Like, I'd go to the beach,
go to Santa Monica,
Universal, or
go to
Disney.
Absolutely. And then there's Venice, and we could have a conversation all about Venice. I can only take Venice for about 15-20 minutes. I physically can't take the energy there. It's just like everything's bombarding you. There's a guy who's a buff bodybuilder with his G-string driving around his roller skates, and then there's somebody and there's literally a freak show on Venice. Like, there's a standing freak show, and you see the bearded dude come out, and you like the guy's face is all like, it's insane. It's insane. LA is such an insane place to be.
but here's the flip side, because I've raised 4 kids here.
Yeah. God bless you. God bless you.
I do love it here.
I do.
I love it because, I mean, I live in a neighborhood. I have family. I have a small group of friends.
Right.
I like the people I work with. And Venice, you're talking about Venice Beach and the boardwalk. I mean, there are pockets. You go a block here and a block there. It's like New York,
Yeah.
Every block is a different
absolutely
ecosystem. And that's the same thing. Like, I live in a neighborhood that could be, St. Louis, a suburb of St. Louis, or
same here,
or north of Miami. It's just a little pocket.
Yeah, but outside that pocket, it could get a little interesting sometimes, depending on where you live.
Oh, it's crazy!
It's crazy here in LA too. That's the one thing. Like, you're literally driving and you're in like Beverly Hills, and then you're driving a little bit farther, and you were like, you do not want to get out of the house, out of the car. It's like an insane. But that's New York too. That's any big city almost. Like, there's really good pockets, real bad pockets. We've kind of gone off the track a little bit, but LA is kind of all about the story, the myth of being in LA and being in Hollywood. And like I said, I've said so many times before, it's about the sizzle here, not the steak. Hollywood's really good at selling that sizzle, but they suck at selling the steak because that's what they do.
And if people, and we were talking about this before, you can make a living nowadays as a filmmaker anywhere.
Oh, absolutely.
And you may have to work harder. You may have to take less sexy jobs in other cities, but there's an abundance of work. And I've noticed in commercials, you may have to wear multiple hats.
Now you do. Absolutely.
Sometimes at once, but like, I used to work in Kansas City all the time. And my dear friend Rick was the best line producer. He's the only guy I know that's been to Sundance 3 times with 3 different movies, would produce my commercials. And then I'd be talking to him on the phone. I go, what are you doing? He goes, I'm location scouting for this big Google commercial. So he would location scout for another producer. And then I would go and I'd be like, hey, Brian, you were doing props the last time?" He goes, "Yeah, this time I'm going to be a grip." You know, like switching departments.
But you have to, because in like when you and I were coming up, you could be just a commercial director. Like that you literally just showed up, did your job, and left. And to many extents, there are still those guys and girls out there that would do that. But once you start getting out of the upper echelon and you start dropping down towards Hollywood Boulevard and less from the Oscars and more towards Hollywood Boulevard, you got to start wearing more hats, and you got to start doing things, and you might have to produce a little bit. You might have to do this a little bit. And then because the budgets were wonderful in the 90s. I mean, in the early 2000s, the budgets were just, I mean, it was insanity, the money that was being spent. Before the dot-com bubble popped, oh my God, there was so much money. So much money. I mean, I remember Miami had 13 post houses. And I know that doesn't sound a lot in LA things, but that's a small market. We had 13, like 6 of them were like major post facilities. And I used to work on all of them, and I would either be editing or I'd be directing or something like that. And then once the dot-com bubble popped, they ended up with like one, if that. And
there were 5 about 4 years ago, and then this second bloodletting got it down to basically 2.
Where is that, in Miami?
In Miami, yeah.
Yeah.
I work in Miami. Look, I'm blessed that I get decent budgets. I mean, I'm a working commercial director. It is my vocation. It's my bread and butter. And they're nice national clients. Like, I've done every car brand. But to your point, okay, I have been doing it 22 years.
There's that.
But to your point, I edited a job that my buddy got for this plant-based protein thing. He goes, "Hey, can I use your office? And we'll set up a little edit suite." And I go, "Yeah." And as a matter of fact, I didn't get the dog food job, so how about I edit for you? And I edited with him with all the humility and grace of a guy that just wants to bring home some pizza and Slurpees for my family. Right? Like, if I tell anybody in 2020, and not just this year, if you can put your ego aside, you can make money. So yes, and you're right, I will produce and make a little. It's more like when I produce, I don't make money, but I save money.
But right? Do you own your own gear and rent it out to the production?
I don't own anything.
You don't own anything. So when I was coming up, a lot of the commercial directors I knew actually owned lenses and lighting packages and stuff, and they would just rent them out as a side hustle to generate a little bit more revenue.
My son has he has a red. Yeah. He has a lens package. He bought these cool Russian lenses. Mm-hmm. We have a whole, like, right over here in my studio, we have lights, sound, but nothing that I would rent out for a Toyota commercial.
Sure.
Like, I would rather the DP get the money and the grips. Like, I bought a slider. I was on a shoot. And so this guy, I knew a guy. He goes, "I bought this slider. I'm never using it." And I bought the slider. I think $100. And it was worth $500-600.
Right.
And I took it to a shoot, and I go, "Hey, let's use the slider." And the grip goes, "Well, I have a slider on the truck." And I go, "Well, no, I brought the slider. I put it in my car because I just got this new slider." And he was very respectful, but he was kind of like,
why?
And I went, a light bulb went out. I go, "Oh,
he's not going to get to rental."
The key grip wants to rent the thing. I go, "Buy my slider, but just give me $200. You'll have an extra one done." I never did it again. Like, it literally, like, what an asshole I was.
But that's also in today's world where you could buy gear, where before a lens, like I remember, like, you're buying lens packages. That was, you're talking about 50,000.
Oh yeah.
100,000. So, like, the grip couldn't bring the DP couldn't own those things unless he was a big time DP. And lighting a grip truck, we're talking about like $500,000 investment. But these are the days of commercial directors making just, we're talking $1 million budgets, $500,000 budget. It was an amazing bang. But I wanted to ask you, what is the biggest myth in directing commercials that you would like to dismiss right now? Because a lot of times people come to me and they've asked me about my commercial past and like, is it a good way to get in? Is it this? I'm like, look, guys, it's a completely different world. Like, I couldn't even comprehend in today's world to do what you're doing on a daily basis as a commercial director. And the only reason you can do what you're doing on a daily basis as a commercial director is because you've got 22 years of relationships and experience, and you're on that list of guys. There's a short list of guys that do this kind of work. And they're like, oh yeah, for the big spots, we gave it to him because we know it's just going to get done right. But like for a young kid to come in right now, like a 20-year-old or 25-year-old, to start building that up without relationships.
Yeah.
And just trying to get like picked up by a production company and get represented. Oh, dude, and sending out reels. And oh my God, I don't even know how to do it now. So what are some myths do you think?
Okay. Yeah. The 3 R's that I teach, preach, and shout from the mountaintop, it's your reel, it's your relationships, and it's revenue. Those are the 3 reasons to do a job. You either want it for your reel, you're doing it because it's a cool relationship or a good relationship to have, or you just need the money. And rarely is it all 3. That is the holy trifecta. If you get all 3 of them, repeat business is the only way that I have a career. And repeat business comes from relationships, and it comes from having a great reel and never delivering dog shit. And the revenue is the least important, which is weird because you think you want to chase that big money gig, but I would rather do a series of lower budget jobs for really cool people with great creative repeatedly than to poo-poo, like nobody's poo-pooing work anymore. And before I give you some of the myths, Alex, there is a list. And my wife hates when I say this publicly because I am an A+ filmmaker. I can step on set. You could hand me the script. I can direct the shit out of it. Mm-hmm. But in the marketplace, I'm a B+ because I'm not on the top list.
Oh no, you're not like David
Fincher. Yeah, anybody with a movie that was a hit is even an A++. Are they entertaining a commercial? Then there's these guys like Tom Kuntz, the Polorian brothers. These guys, I just love their work. They do a lot of Geico, your funniest Geico ads. Like,
Is Pitka still around, right?
Well, Pitka's, yeah, but he's an anomaly, right?
Yeah. Can he get away? We're going to get back to Pitka in a minute because I got to talk to you about Pitka. Go ahead.
I don't think there could be another Pitka. I don't think you could be an asshole.
Can you be Pitka today? Can Pitka be Pitka today? He can't.
Pitka could be Pitka.
But can he though?
I met him. He was a sweetheart. But I know people that worked with him that like an actor goes, he threw a football at me. And my wife worked with him, was like,
he's broken legs.
You couldn't do.
Oh no, farting in clients' faces. Literally. I've heard these stories from people on set that like, he literally was walking upstairs and the client was behind him and he farted in the guy's face. He goes, that's what I think of you. And these are the kind of stories you hear and you're just like, is this man real? And by the way, if anyone doesn't know who we're talking about Joe Pitka, the director of Space Jam.
And every Clydesdale.
Every Budweiser Clydesdale commercial. Absolutely.
But the guy who, why am I blanking? He owns Hungry, Brian Buckley. Mm-hmm. Has done more Super Bowl commercials, maybe not as many as Pitka, but he has multiple ones. And he's, from what I've heard, one of the nicest guys. And he's your comedy go-to. And that's that list of guys with $1 million budgets.
Oh, yeah.
Huge daily budgets, great fees. And they're that list. And then your Jordan Brady is like, oh, we couldn't get that, but Jordan could mimic that. You know, I do a lot of cars.
That's not a bad.
It's not a bad thing at all.
It's not. Jordan, I don't understand why you're saying this. It's not a bad thing to be, on the bench after Fincher. I mean, I'd be cool with that.
I'm very cool with my place, but no, my wife is like, you're A+. I go, but the difference, and this is what I think filmmakers need to understand: the difference between your skill and your talent, your gift as a storyteller filmmaker,
right,
and where you are in the marketplace
Completely
It's
different.
great when they align, but they're two separate things. And if you can't objectively look at yourself as a commodity, and where do I need to improve? And sometimes maybe they want more sizzle. Sometimes they're star fuckers. They want the guy that did Napoleon Dynamite.
My God.
For the longest time, Napoleon Dynamite. If you want Wes Anderson, go get Wes Anderson. But for your $110,000 for a union crew and SAG actors, you're probably not going to get Wes Anderson. We'll try to wring out a spot.
Right, and Wes Anderson's probably fee is $100,000.
Yeah. So here's some myths. Your short film doesn't mean crap to anyone.
Amen.
As a commercial director, no one cares about your short film. No one's going to watch it. No one's going to watch your 2-minute short film.
No one cares.
And more people want to see 15 seconds. I do 6-second commercials sometimes.
Well, this is a different world now. Yeah. 15 before, for me, it was 15 second, 30 second, and 60 second, if that.
It's still 15 and 30, but more 15 and the 30's still alive.
Oh no, yeah.
But it's not 37 seconds.
No.
The one myth is your director's cut of your commercial had better be on point with the brand messaging, right? Because if it's 37 seconds and it has all the jokes, but it doesn't have but a second of a product shot, people are going to go, well, why did it take 37 seconds to tell a 30-second story? It actually hurts you, your director's cut.
Right. So I actually remember seeing, I always watch the Super Bowl every year, so I always love watching it for the commercials as well as the game. And I always look at them, and the commercials, a lot of times, the best commercials have wonderful creative, but I don't remember the product.
Yeah.
And that's a great directing feat, but it's horrible for the client because I don't remember the product. I still remember this great spot. Like E-Trade. I'll give you two examples. There was one, I'll never forget this E-Trade commercial, where a monkey, there's two weird looking dudes in a garage. The monkey comes up, the dude hits a boombox, and the monkey sits there and just starts with an E-Trade t-shirt on and starts dancing for 25 seconds. There's nothing, and then these kind of Deliverance looking guys are just slapping their knees in a garage somewhere. And at the end, it goes, "We just wasted $3 million. What are you doing with your money?" Perfectly on brand, funny, great creative.
Attention grabbing.
Decades later, I still remember that damn thing. There was another commercial that I saw, which was some guys out in the boon, in the bayou, in a house, and they're just there and they're drinking some hot sauce. And there's a mosquito that lands on his arm. He drinks it, and then as the mosquito goes off, he explodes because it's so hot. I don't remember the hot sauce. I remember there was a hot sauce. I have no idea what the
might have been Tabasco.
It wasn't a major one. It was an off. It was like we're taking our shot with the Super Bowl commercial. So
Baby Puppy Monkey was one a few years ago, and I can't remember if it was Mountain.
Oh yeah, I remember. Yes, I remember Baby Puppy Monkey. Yeah, I have no recollection of it. So yes, you definitely, as a commercial director, you should be making commercials that work with the brand and not just making a cool spot, because the clients are going to want to hire you.
And your spec spot cannot look like a spec spot. So another big myth is if you put it on Vimeo and you say, my Nike spec spot, you've already tainted the viewer by calling it a spec spot, and they don't care if you use an Alexa Mini and the Zeiss lenses. They don't care. No one cares. They just put the name of the commercial and the product, and hopefully someone will be tricked that it was a real commercial. That's the biggest thing people do with spec spots. And people send me their spec spot. Jordan, what do you think of this spec spot? I go, why'd you tell me it's a spec spot? Because now I'm going to watch it and go, well, it's kind of a spec spot.
Well,
yeah.
No. So I'll tell my quick my spec spot stories. Back in the 90s, when I did my spec spots, it cost me $50,000 to do my spec spot reel. Yeah. I shot 35 because I knew the game, and beautiful productions, all this stuff. And I originally had one of my, and we did the 3/4 inch tapes to send them out to everybody through FedEx and stuff like that. And I did a commercial, and I put Nike at the end of it because it was a sports commercial. I put Nike at the end of it. And then after a little bit, I decided, you know what? I'm going to change this. I'm going to put Body Glove. So I changed the logo instead of Nike to Body Glove because now all of a sudden there's no way in hell this kid did Nike, but he could have done a body.
Yeah.
Maybe a Body Glove. And I got more reaction because of that. Another thing I did, which was
that's very smart, by the way. Always go for a third tier brand.
That could actually, you could actually
call your bluff.
Right. And then I did another spot, which was, it was rough. It was rough because it was beautifully shot. It was very artistic and it was like edgy, but unfortunately, it didn't it was a little too cool for school. So it was basically the commercial was this beautiful girl on a bed, sleeping. And then we intercut that with her doing drugs, going crazy in the bathroom. So we got 9 Inch Nails with Disney music, and I intercut both of them back and forth. And it's based on an ad that I saw. This is a spec spot. So I put it all together. And at the very end, this woman's just lying there. And then as you pull back, you see that she's got drugs on the bed and like pill bottles and things like that. This is not a very PC commercial and all this stuff. And you pull back and her hair is perfect. And the tagline is "Great hair never dies." And and it was for and I did it for this really fancy, some fancy hair salon in New York, which again, people could have maybe thought about it. And I was trying to do the really cool, you remember that heroin commercial back in the day? I forgot, I think Fincher director, someone like that directed it, where it's this guy's literally ODing with heroin.
It wasn't for heroin.
No, it was against heroin. It's not for. You don't really need a commercial for heroin. Yeah, I think it sells itself. I mean, no, but it was about he's doing drugs and he's in this dirty toilet and he's throwing up on himself. And and you're hearing during the entire commercial, "Heroin, it's the thing to do. Heroin, it's for me." So it was this beautiful juxtaposition. So that's what I was trying to attempt to do. But I got a lot of reps that used to rep me. They're like, "Dude, we got to pull that spot off. It's scaring people off." And I'm like, "Oh, fuck, but it's so beautiful." Because but it's scaring people off. Got to pull it off the reel.
Yeah, sometimes a spoof doesn't work. I did a spoof commercial, and people are like, "Nah, it's more like an SNL sketch." So that doesn't help as much. And but I will say this: in this era, a year or so ago, I interviewed Kirsten Emhoff, who's the EP and founder of Pretty Bird, and they have Paul Hunter. It's Paul Hunter's company with her. Mm-hmm. They have Paul Maddock, who did Old Town Road video and a bunch of great commercials recently. Really popped. I think I'm saying his name right. Paul Maddock. Mm-hmm. We'll have to Google.
We'll have to Google.
And she said, I'm tired of seeing spec spots. I would rather see a young person's take a song and do a music video to it. You don't need the artist in it. Just make a cool representation of your voice as a filmmaker. But back to the myth. The other myth is, now the myth is you don't have to be in LA.
Right.
Wait, the myth is you have to be in LA.
Right.
I think now you could be in any city. You just have to make yourself available. But the other myth that people think is the director writes the spot. So the director is like a midwife. The agency and the client gave birth to this idea, and the idea was vetted and it was sold by an account team and a product manager and a chief marketing officer at the client end. If you're going to make if you're up for a commercial for Bounty paper towels, the script and the tagline, the quicker picker upper, I don't even know if they still use that, but let's just say that's not going to change. So if you pitch your crazy idea, you're not helping. You have to pitch your ideas that build on their idea. I always tell people it's like throwing logs on a fire that was started before you got to the campsite. You don't need to start a new fire. You don't.
It's already going
on the fire. It's already gone. Just get some more wood, stoke it a little bit, make it better, and people love it. And so the director doesn't write the commercial, and she doesn't rewrite the entire thing. But you still find that you're putting your stamp on it. And I was using the analogy, the wet nurse, not wet nurse, the
midwife
analogy. And another director, the commercial director, Rachel Harms, she said, I like dressmaker. Because if you think of a dressmaker like Daniel Day-Lewis in
is it dressmaker? I think it's called
Magic. No, it's the thread.
Oh,
secret thread.
The Phantom Thread.
Phantom Thread.
Yes,
which would be a great Lego movie. In Phantom Thread, he had an idea. He had a creative vision for the dress, but it was based on what the princess wanted or the client wanted. And Rachel said to me, Jordan, think about it. You're a dressmaker because you have this wonderful craft and you have an artisan's eye and you're really specialized at these kind of dresses. But if the client thinks her arms look fat in that dress, you're going to put some sleeves on it.
Absolutely.
And she's right. And so that's a big myth that you come in and you tell everybody, get out of my way. I'm going to take your dog shit script and make it a winner.
And from my experience, that kind of attitude does kind of work only at the very top echelon. So if you're hiring Michael Bay, David Fincher, Ridley Scott, Spike Jonze, Antoine Fuqua, any of these monsters, you want them to come in and kind of not just like do two boards because you're paying them an obscene amount of money. They're going to come in and maybe they'll rewrite, maybe they'll work on some stuff, maybe they'll add some things. But that doesn't generally work. We're talking about the top 1% of 1%.
Even those people you mentioned are doing a conference call.
Oh, absolutely. They're not just coming in. They don't come in and just take over, but they definitely have a little bit more input than I would in that same conversation.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, maybe not. That's kind of a myth. I mean, when the superstar directors, especially the feature people, do take on a commercial, a lot of it has already been plotted out. Now, conversely, there's a campaign that I've done for 8 years in a row where the initial assignment 8 years ago was one picture of a cat wearing sunglasses and some song lyrics. And there was nothing else. And they said, whatever you want to do. We got a cat with sunglasses. And I ended up putting a turtleneck sweater and a gold medallion and brought in a bulldog and a leather jacket and 3 other cats in pink wigs. And they wanted that, right? And that was a modest budget. That was probably $225 for a day. That was healthy, right? 8 years ago. Now that would be almost 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in some social media budgets, Alex, social media budgets, that's the training ground for your listener right now doing social media projects with a small crew that's nimble. That's where you break in as a young filmmaker doing commercials. And you'll get your 10,000 hours. You'll develop your voice. You'll learn how to collaborate. You'll learn how to work with a DP and an agency. And if you don't like it, you still got those hours in on set.
Yep.
Now go make your feature.
Now, can you talk a little bit about there's an not an anomaly, but it's something that is very specific in the commercial world. There is a little bit of it in the feature world and television world, but much more so in the commercial world, which is specialization. That you are the tabletop guy, or you are a comedy director, or you are a dialogue director, which freaking pissed me off when I wouldn't get jobs because they're like, oh, there's no dialogue over here. I'm like, dude, I can direct someone talking. It just used to get me so irritated. But that they really put you in boxes in commercials, and they do so. As a feature director, as a television director, like you specialize. Like, oh, you're the action guy, and occasionally you got the Coen brothers who can just jump back and forth. But that's
look at Knives Out. He just jumped
from Star Wars to Knives Out.
From Star Wars to Knives Out. That was insane.
But he also has now established himself as like the Coen brothers is like, I had Barry Sonnenfeld on, and I was talking to him about Raising Arizona. And he goes, I'm like, how did you go from Blood Simple to Raising Arizona with the Coens? He goes, oh, that was strategic. They wanted to do that. They wanted to make sure that they could do both, because Blood Simple has nothing to do with Raising Arizona. Both of them are amazing movies. But then they started doing that. Like, now it's there. Like, they could do whatever they want. Spielberg could do whatever he wants. Scorsese, I mean, he's done a couple comedies, but generally speaking, Scorsese. Though I would like to see a David Fincher comedy. That I would pay good money to see a David Fincher comedy.
I bet he could do a comedy.
Oh, I think he would.
If the material was there on the page,
I think it would be amazing. Go ahead. So ahead.
Alex, your question is, they put you in a box, right?
Right.
Do they put you in a box? I will use a Tai Chi move and say, especially starting out, put yourself in a box. Make yourself easy to sell. If I'm starting out and I have comedy dialogue and then I have this spot for Mother's Day that makes you cry, I'm telling a sales agent, a rep, to go, choose what I do. Because someone is selling you, like your agent, we call them reps, you want to have a box that they can put you in so that you get more opportunities, because the more scripts you get put up for, the more conference calls you get to be on, the more likely you are to win that job. So, and I teach this it's in my commercial directing masterclass, available at commercialdirectingmasterclass.com.
We will speak of that. We will speak of that soon.
Yeah. And the boot camp is put yourself in a box. So I am a comedy dialogue director.
Right.
But I also, here's the big secret, you can be in different boxes for different people.
Right.
There's a group of people in New York that think I am a kids director.
Yes.
And there's a bunch of people in LA that think I do special effects, like high-end visual effects with comedy. And there's another group in Detroit that know I excel at celebrities, comedy, and cars. Like the intersection of those three things. I did Kathryn Hahn for Chrysler, Goldberg, the wrestler. We did some fun stuff for Dodge. Jim Gaffigan for Chrysler. Like that weird intersection.
It's very specific. Very specific.
And someone will call and go, hey, we've got a script. They have a celebrity. It's for a car brand. We want to put you up for it. I'm like, fucking A.
And that was the thing. When I got my start in the commercial business, I was in the dub room. So I would be making dubs all day. And I had directors with dialogue reel, with a comedy reel, with an action reel. It was all relative, and they all had specific reels. So they would get a call for a job, and they're like, I need a copy of his dialogue reel, or we're going to cut a fresh dialogue reel for him, or we're going to cut a comedy reel. So they were always presenting different boxes, but you would never send. Occasionally, you would get a full demo that had a little bit of everything. Occasionally, but it was rare. You would generally
work.
It generally would be, unless they asked for it specifically, or there was a relationship or something like that, they would ask for a specific thing. And that's the thing. That was the biggest mistake I made when I did my spec reel. I had a sports action.
Good variety.
I had sports action. I had a comedy, and I had a suicide hair commercial. That was the thing. And I had a Trojan condoms comedy commercial. So I literally had 4 different spots on my demo reel. And they were all over the place. So it took them a minute to figure out who I was.
That's another myth we should point out.
Mm-hmm.
That variety does not help. That's a myth. Myth, right? Variety and having bench helps, but only if they're all in the same genre.
Yeah, you could be a comedy director, a comedy dialogue director, a comedy kids director, a comedy visual effects director. I don't know if they're calling you for the next great action, spot, or a Victoria's Secret spot. They're not called. That's not the
unless the models like trip and have a pie in their.
And then opposite. Then you're the guy. You're the guy. So that's something.
By the way, you know what else? You know what else sucks? What, another myth?
Yeah.
The montage doesn't help.
Oh,
if you send me your montage as a director, the ad agency and the EPs at the production companies, everybody goes, great montage, love the fire explosion, love that you shot with the influencer. But guess what? I need to see the spots. So what you've done is, I mean, maybe playing devil's advocate, the montage gets you in the door, but you've really just prolonged the inevitable that someone who's going to sell your talent to make you a working director has to see the finished product. They think, what is she hiding by showing us a montage instead of the full commercial?
Right. And in the director's mind, he's like, I'm going to show everything I could do and all the highlights of my career. And I remember I never, ever cut montages. Like my sales reps would tell me, do not cut a montage. Do not put like this cool explosions, everything like that. I had one director friend of mine who had me edit together a celebrity reel because he's the celebrity guy.
Yeah.
And that's a thing that he's done a lot of spots with celebrities. And this is a thing I feel, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that agencies have so much pressure, just like studio executives do, have so much pressure on them per spot, depending, even if the bigger the budget, the bigger the client, they have a lot of pressure to bring this home. And if they take a chance on a comedy guy doing a Victoria's Secret spot, it exposes them to get fired or lose their job or lose the client, lose the account. So they have to play it safe. So that's why literally I had conversations with like, we love your work, but this spot has dialogue. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I shot a feature. I shot these shorts and this and that. Like, they're like, that's nice. We just need a 30-second spot with people talking in it. And I'm like, you guys are out of your fucking minds. Like, yeah, I was so pissed off, but that is the reality. And you have to understand from their point of view, they got to mitigate risk. And then that's one of the reasons why a guy like you, and please correct me if I'm wrong, someone like you with the experience you have, you're a safe bet for an agency to go, Jordan's going to do this. He's done a 1,200. And if something goes wrong, they got their ass covered. I'm like, dude, the guy's done 1,200 commercials. Look at his reel. Like, it's not me. It's not me. Right?
But literally, since we've been talking, someone just said food and comedy.
Yeah.
So they wanted to, do I have any food and comedy? And
you see how ridiculous
we're going to get a DP, or sometimes the tabletop director does the food portion of the stuff of the commercial.
Yeah,
like when they cut to the beautiful steak and the shrimp,
and that is by the way, everyone
different person.
And by the way, everyone listening, tabletop guys and gals. That's I mean, my first boss was a tabletop guy, so I knew.
Really?
Yeah, he was one of the big tabletop guys down in the Southeast, and I saw all the commercials. And and his wife was a food was it prepper or
stylist?
Stylist, thank you, food stylist,
fluffer,
and a food fluffer, yes. And the stuff that they would do and how they made it look beautiful, it was a whole thing. And we lost an account. I shit you not, they lost an account because the hamburger didn't look good in the spot, and it kind of looked grody in the shot that they did, and they lost the account because the hamburger didn't look good. And that's the kind of ridiculousness and pressure that you as a director in the commercial world are sometimes. And sometimes they will spend a day on the damn bottle and give you like 2 hours to shoot the spot.
I was so fortunate in the early to mid 2000s to do Kellogg's Eggo waffles. And it was a guy in a waffle suit made by Stan Winston, Legacy Effects.
Of course.
Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
You name it. They made the waffle suit, and they had, the guy who was a waffle. In fact, when he was off doing a Peter Jackson thing with some of their effects, Christopher Swift was his name, the guy who played the waffle. His understudy had to come in. I was like, he's just not the right breakfast item. But we did.
He doesn't have waffle experience. He doesn't have waffle experience.
He's more like a cinnamon bun. We did huge props on a white cyc, and we built a 20-foot toaster. We built this big, giant box of Eggo waffles because it was intrinsic to the comedy that they were large props. Mm-hmm. Like we had an 8-foot beautiful stainless aluminum fork that matched a real fork, and the cereal bowl matched a little bowl, and we would intercut real props with big props for the gag. But because of the way the budgets were, and they were healthy budgets, like we would shoot like for 4 or 5 days at Sony on a stage because we would amortize costs by doing several spots at once.
Sure.
But we would do one full day of just food, of all the tabletop. And I worked with my I'm blanking. Of course, I'm blanking
DP?
on his name.
Yeah, DP.
Yeah, my DP. Yeah. And we learned so much, and I think this is invaluable for the young filmmaker. I learned so much about tabletop, not from the DP, but from the art director from the agency at Leo Burnett Chicago, who Peter Lohmeyer, who like invented Toucan Sam and had done breakfast shots forever. And he would be like, Jordan, let me just show you. And we had little mirrors and this, and it was just it was just so fun. It's its own world.
It's smoke and mirrors. It really is. Tabletop is such a like smoke and mirrors, and they're not using real butter. They're not using real anything. It's all fake, and you die if you ate any of this food.
One of my first jobs where we had fake ice cream in the freezer, there was ice cream and frost on the side of the thing, and it would look like it was dripping because it was like it was melting. And I literally took my finger like that and I licked it, and they go, "What are you doing?" And that's paint thinner, or it's bug spray.
Oh yeah,
never eat the props.
Never eat the props. And that was the thing. I remember I was on set one day and they were doing ice cream, and you can't shoot ice cream because it's gonna melt. So they had this beautiful, and my mind was blown. Like, why is that ice cream not melting? Like, I was young, I had no idea what they were doing. Why is the ice cream not melting? They're like, dude, that's not ice cream. And I forgot what they used, but it's some combination that just made it look beautiful. It's a whole other world.
The one thing that the commonality of commercials in indie film or studio film, I mean, I'm sure studio film, they would have real fake ice cream. And by the way, if anyone listening has money to invest, I would love to start a fake food company that FedExes or Amazon Primes overnight fake food to anywhere in the country. Because I was in somewhere in Missouri or Kansas, and I go, hey, for the breakfast thing, like, does the prop house have fake eggs? Because they had a film community, and the guy goes, this is not LA. And I'm like, I want fake eggs so that they look fresh all day, like sushi. You know how good the fake sushi looks?
Oh, it's amazing.
So why don't we have a company where we rent whatever meal you need, but it's plastic, it's a mold.
It's a small it's a small market.
Yeah.
It's a specialized market, and now it's about the cost of getting the awareness to the company out to the world. That would be the big cost involved. But other than that, I think it's a fantastic idea. And things that seem like crazy doesn't seem so crazy when you're looking at it from a commercial lens. Like something like that, you're like, that doesn't make any sense. But if you've been on a commercial set, you know how absolutely valuable fake food is.
Because under the lights, it's going to look shitty. I mean, it gets hard and cold. And the commonality between all forms of filmmaking is it really only matters what the camera sees.
Yes.
And your filmmaking craft is going to be the same. Like, I remember when we had a snow cone machine, and I literally saw the prop guy balling up red tape and blue tape and sticking it in a snow cone. And I was like, oh, yeah, they're in the background. Like, that's going to be perfect. They're just two kids.
It's blurred out.
They're out of focus anyway. What a genius thing. Like, it wasn't even like he was ad-libbing that. He had planned on, we'll just crumple up some blue paper or something. It was tape, like painter's tape. And it worked great. That would work in a movie. That would work on a commercial, in a TV show. I think when you have more money, you don't get as inventive.
Right. Yeah. In general. Now, how do you deal with clients in agency? Because that's an art form. It is an absolute art form, how to deal with clients' ridiculousness sometimes. Like, it's the oldest joke. Like, can you make our logo just a bit larger? Like, that's the running gag in commercials and in print commercials and everything. You just make the logo a little bit bigger, and just dealing with agencies and the politics of agencies and dealing with the client and the politics of client. I don't know about you. I was in a job once where I was doing post, and this is a true story. The agency and the client were in the room. During our post session, the client fired the agency off air, like not in the room. Like there was obviously tension. And as the editor of that job, we're Switzerland. We're like, if the agency says something, I'll do it. If the client says something, I do it. Like I had two masters I have to deal with. And then the director shows up and I'm just there with, I'm like, we're just Switzerland. So there was tension in the room. And then like after lunch, we hear what happened. And then the next hour of editing notes was a bit rough, to the point where there was a fist fight in the post room. There was a little fist fight. This is Miami, so and it was like a fast food chain. And I remember it completely because the client, obviously, you know which one it is. Yeah, you know which one it is. Yes, it's the opposite of Pollo Loco. So we're talking about 20 years ago, and I remember because the client gave me like a stack of free coupons to get as much food as I wanted at the fast food joint. I would just use them like crazy. But I got into a fist fight and I had to pull them apart, and it was a whole thing. And so that's an extreme version of dealing with client and agency. What any tips do you have for dealing with that?
Yes, another myth: the director is involved in editing.
Not always.
That is a myth.
Yeah, it's not
rarely nowadays. The schedule is so tight that the editor, we've had the editor on set and delivered a cut that night at 1 a.m. for approval the next day. So you you give the editor your notes and you hope she or he can take that into account, but really you hand it over to the advertising creatives to lead the ship in the editing with the editor. And the editors have game. The editors are fucking awesome and fast, and they see the footage, and it's okay 30, that you're not involved.
It's 30 seconds. Like it's 30 seconds. But the longest post job I ever did, I wasn't involved with it, but I was the tape dubber, and they rented the room. They were 6 months.
Wow.
This was
I've never heard of that.
This was $1.5 million foreign. It was for like Argentina, and it was like for Benson and Hedges cigarettes. Then when they could still do cigarette commercials. They flew on an LA editor for I think 4 months out of that time. I was doing the assistant editing at the time, and they just sat there for days and move a frame here, move a frame there, and I was just like, this is insanity.
Like someone wanted to go to Argentina.
No, I wasn't in Argentina. This was in Miami. Yeah. We didn't go to Argentina.
Miami, yeah.
In Miami. No, in Argentina, of course. But no, we were in Miami. It was insane. It was insanity.
Well, the way, being a stand-up comedian helps me a lot dealing with clients.
Yeah, I can imagine.
No kidding, because I have a sense of humor.
Yeah.
And, I believe, and my kids hear this since they were little, there's only solutions in filmmaking. Yeah. And I never pushed my kids. My son Jake is a writer. My son Ben's a director, DP. Gabby is at USC to study in school dramatic arts. Jeezy's at UT in marketing at the Stan Richards School of Advertising. And we pushed none of them into this, but I said, there's only solutions in filmmaking. So my approach is, I say at the pre-pro, here's how tomorrow's going to work. Like I tell them how the day is going to work. I don't ask permission. I go, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to be at my monitor by myself, and you're going to be in the village. And the first couple of takes are going to suck. And the third take is going to be so bad that you're going to be like, does this guy know what is happening? Did we get the right actors? And then the fourth take is going to be magical. And the fifth take is going to be even better. And then before the sixth take, I'm going to come back to you and say, how can we make it better? Now I've laid out how I like to work, and it doesn't always go my way. And sometimes a creative director wants to come over and peek and whisper something here and there. Sometimes the client, like you said, the fist fight, sometimes on set, the client and the agency don't get along.
Oh,
they want two separate villages. But I try to implore them, have one voice. Like, everybody here is smart. Everybody's going to have great ideas. We have one day. So I need you all to fight amongst yourselves before I come over after take 5. So that is my offensive approach to managing all the crazy notes.
But with that said, I don't mean to interrupt you, but with that said, you have the gravitas to pull something like that off. A young guy or gal is not going to have that ability. So what advice would you give someone starting out the dealing with agency and client? Because it's a lot easier for someone like you or myself who has experience, who has some quote unquote gravitas with themselves, that their agency has a level of respect there just because of the work that we've done.
Yes. By the way, you can interrupt. It's your show. I'm your guest. I'm very humbled to be here.
I'm just being polite.
So I mentored a young man coming up, and he went over to the Village, and the creative director said, "Could we try one where the guy's like lifts his eyebrow up or whatever it was?" And the young director goes, "No, that wouldn't be funny." And we walked, and everybody went, "Ooh." Ooh. And we walked away, and I was on set sort of as a executive producer role. And I go, "Hey, what you just did was about as dumb as anything I've ever heard on a film set.
A commercial film set.
Why don't you do what he said? And then when you're done, go back over and apologize and say, hey, I thought about it and it was funny. Thank you for that." I had an art director one time, senior art director, on a 4-day shoot, Prilosec, OTC, heartburn medicine. We were flying every day because I'm fast, right? We're going. Then this one shot at the ocean, we were trying to do like a forced perspective on a prop lighthouse to make it look real. All of a sudden, we're on the East Coast, and the guy goes, "It was like 40 minutes." He goes, "Hey, we've been flying. Why is this taking so long?" And Alex, I had some bullshit ready to sling, and I just stopped in my brain and looked at him and I said, "It's taking too long because I didn't plan this properly."
Wow.
And the guy looked at me, he goes, "Fair enough. Let's do it right." So my advice to the young person is don't try to, especially with seasoned ad guys, and by guys, I mean women and men. They're super smart. They're very creative. There is a lot of on the line these days, as you pointed out. Just don't try to bullshit them. Just say, "Hey, I got stuck," or, I take the blame. I had a prop guy make a sign with a scene down the middle that I was just like, "Oh, I can't shoot it." And it took another 45 minutes. We had to bring something in, and the producer goes, "This is crazy. Yeah, that prop guy she goes, "Well, it's not." I go, "I'm really sorry." She goes, "It's not your fault." I said, "Yeah, it is my fault. I hired that guy." So you have to be the captain of the ship and own your mistakes. The craziest thing, I did a Happy Meal commercial, and it was a fantastical setting. And the client said, "Jordan, I just don't understand. This is a decent budget. Why couldn't we get a real unicorn?"
No.
And I said, "Well, they're extinct."
Was he being serious?
Totally serious.
Dead serious. Why can't we get it? She can't get it.
Why can't we get a real unicorn? Same thing. A copywriter said the parrot was doing the voice activated car thing. Like you talk to the car, like, "Hey, play Sirius XM," and the parrot was in the car. And the copywriter asked me, "How are you going to teach the bird how to say the line? How does the bird learn its lines?" And I went, "Rock, trainer, rock." Because we just dubbed it, we weren't even going to dub it in on the day. That's in post. So you have a sense of humor.
You've got to roll, man. You gotta roll. I was once there was this one I think it was an agency. Yeah, she was agency. And she told the story of, she was just this ball, she really was an ass. I'm sorry. She was really mean. She was nasty to people. And I was doing post on it. And I've been working for a while. And she was like, why is that look like that? I'm like, oh, well, it's that they're not using double drop frame on set. And they're like, what do you mean? She's like, it was just shot drop frame, but if you want a really clean image, you need to use double drop frame. Double drop frame. And she's like, really? I'm like, yeah. I didn't give a crap anymore. I was like, I don't care if I get fired or not. And this was, I don't know when this was, fucking decades ago. And she's like, okay. So when you go back on set tomorrow, double drop.
Tell him you want double.
So she walked on set the next day with all the confidence in the world that she could muster. And she's like, I demand that this gets shot double drop frame to the DP and to the director. And they're like, where did you hear double drop frame before? He said, well, I was talking to the editor. And she's like, oh, Alex.
That's a good one.
double drop frame. It was just, but that I don't suggest you do things like that, guys. But I was an editor on my way out of that facility, and I was pissed off at the whole situation. They hadn't paid me, and there was a whole thing. So
that's funny.
Now, do you think that being a commercial director in today's world is a good entrance to being a feature director? Because you've directed features, I've directed features. We both started off in commercials, but again, we started off at a different time. And, before Ridley, there was no commercial. To my knowledge, I think Ridley and Tony were the first couple guys who broke through from commercials to
Michael Bay and
then there was the whole crowd of the Fincher, Michael Bay, Spike Jonze, Antoine Fuqua, all those kind of guys. But that was like a while before those guys. Commercials was like, if you're a commercial director, don't even look at being a feature director. Like that was not a way in.
Yeah, I think it's good only to prove to a studio that you have skills, that you have game, and that you've. I think a studio would like to know that you've navigated the waters of the corporate America with a team, that you're collaborative. I think even investors on an indie film.
Mm-hmm.
If I saw that you had a Wrigley's double mint gum commercial, or now you got double on my here.
Well, it was a shot double drop frame. That's the hashtag double drop frame.
If you had a Charmin toilet paper commercial and it's great looking film and good performances, I would go, okay, this filmmaker knows how to the craft of filmmaking and knows how to navigate the waters. I mean, look, I'll be honest. I did one film for Miramax, and Harvey Weinstein I think he was still scummy at the time, but no one was calling him out on it. But that aside, I don't think I knew how to. I was too young. I wish I had the experience I have now, navigating the waters of quasi studio film. I wasn't prepared for the politics of dealing with that. Like I did my own indie where I raised some money. I did 2 indies where I was a hired gun for like a $2 million film and had some decent actors, but it was actually ironically a competitive commercial. It was HSI, which was a big player in the commercials back in the day, who wanted to have, like I said at the beginning of the show, one of their film, a film division, and they funded a little indie. And I could navigate that because everybody's kind of in it, together. But doing commercials, if I'd done like even 5 years of commercials before doing a Miramax film, Waking Up in Reno, my film, with Billy Bob Thornton, who was not easy to deal with, Charlize Theron, who was on her way up, Patrick Swayze, who was the biggest star of them all, and Natasha Richardson, I think Jordan Brady would have been better equipped to navigate the politics behind the scenes.
And how did you get that? How did you get that gig?
I got that gig because my first film, Dill Scallion, which premiered at Slam Dance. I don't know if the listener can see your shirt.
Mm-hmm.
Premiered at Slam Dance, and it was a country music Spinal Tap.
Right.
And then the producers saw the film, and it was called, they saw Dill Scallion, and I got hired like within a year to do, I wasn't even done editing at the time, but my agent had, said, you got to see a cut of this. So I did a film called The Third Wheel with Luke Wilson, And Ben Affleck and Matt Damon were producers. Matt Damon's in one scene, and after his first take, I said, "Hey, no one's as good as you in the film. Could you just lower the bar a little bit?" And this was before Project Greenlight, so I call it Project Stoplight, the third wheel. Like, they wanted to be producers in the school of Miramax too, because
Oh yeah, they did.
They came through the Harvey school of things, and then Harvey Weinstein bought the third wheel as a negative pickup. Now, this is something that the indie film hustle crew will like to not know, but it's true. If you have Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, who have won the Academy Award
at this point, this is post Good Will Hunting, right?
But before they won, I was attached to direct this script, and Ben Affleck was going to be the lead. And Jay Lacopo, the writer and star, was friends with them and wrote it for himself. When Ben Affleck, Matt Damon, I don't think wanted anything to do with anything. I think he just wanted to act. But the movie gets put on hold because they win the Oscar. But then Affleck says, "I'll be the buddy and shoot me out in 4 days," like a 24-day schedule. Jordan Brady has just done this like $400,000 indie film that had like a little cult following from Slam Dance and making the rounds, and got a video deal, blah, blah, blah. So I'm hired to direct. We bang it out. They bring Harvey to the edit suite, which is an avid, above a restaurant somewhere. Harvey sees the movie, says he'll buy it on the spot, and fires the editor, brings in a new editor. Like, which to me is just not a classy move.
On the barometer of classy things that Harvey Weinstein does or has done,
so bad.
Seriously, not that bad. Not that bad of a move.
I think he jerked off on the ashtray.
Oh, Jesus.
I'm sorry. We don't want to go there with the show. I apologize. Nonetheless, what I was going to say that your fans may find interesting is, to me, it wasn't so much that Harvey liked the movie. It was that, hey, these two stars that just made me a lot of money are producers now. I'm going to buy their movie. Well, it could have been just like,
of course,
90 minutes of a close-up of a Coke can or something.
Yeah, exactly. It was a political move.
I think it was a political move. He did pony up for some additional photography like the next summer, and it took forever. And so basically, when he saw the final version of the third wheel, we had a meeting, and he said, "I'm really happy with the third wheel." And my agent had given me Waking Up in Reno, which was like a redneck comedy. And I said, "Hey, by the way, I read the script. I think you own it. I want to direct it." He said, "Okay." Like, it was a 12-minute meeting at the Peninsula Hotel in between massages or something.
And funny enough, many people who are listening know that I was in Project Greenlight season 2.
Oh, I did not know that.
I was, but no, it doesn't sound as impressive as it is. I was in the first episode for 5 seconds in the montage at the beginning saying, "I will do anything to make it in here. I will do anything to make it in the business," or something along those lines. I did a whole YouTube video about it and showed it. And because a lot of people, we know what Project Greenlight is. And I know it came out a few years ago, but Project Greenlight was insane when it came out. Like, when that aired, I got phone calls from all around the country. Like, I just saw you on HBO. Were you just on HBO? It was like, oh yeah. And in the background, I had like my wall of VHSs that were all color coordinated for my video. Oh, it was good time.
But my problem with the first season, Chris Moore was also the producer along with with Matt and Ben. He's a nice guy, okay, but he is smart enough. All three of those guys are smart enough that first season that they allowed the guy to shoot under the L train.
You read my mind.
To me, I was like, this is just for television.
This is first day. First day
you're going to shoot under a train. Like, they must have been snickering and salivating, going, this is good television.
Oh no, but it's all about. I realized that years later. I was like, oh, thank God I didn't get on that show because it was. Oh my God, it was. You want to watch a I mean, it is. You want to watch a train wreck. Watch any of those seasons, at all. But it was just insane. You were just sitting there like, and the DP didn't want a shot list. He didn't believe in shot listing, and it was just like all this stuff, and it was just like, this is horrible. This is absolutely horrible. It's a train wreck. But yeah, the second season, which would have been the battle of Shaker Heights, the one with a young Shia LaBeouf was in that, and that was an interesting season. But yeah, I mean, I've been actually, I have a friend of mine who's good friends with Chris, Mr. Chris Moore. I don't know him, but I told him next time you talk to Chris, tell him thanks for fucking nothing for not casting me in season 2 of Project Greenlight. So I'm waiting to actually meet him and talk to him about it. I'm like, man, you could have had me.
Their loss.
Obviously.
I have no regrets. I feel fortunate. I'm a kid from Ohio with no ties to show business, although I live next to Paul Lynde in Mount Vernon, Ohio, who was the original Center Square.
You sir are dating yourself and me at the exact same time, because I know that reference.
But I came out here. Yeah. Look, stand-up comedy got me everything. Stand-up comedy keeps me grounded. I've made documentaries about stand-up comedy, and taking a page from your book, realized, after doing those features, and what the commercial director and the feature director, obviously, if one of the movies is a hit, you can just coast and they cherry pick you. But if you're a working director in both realms, as soon as you leave commercials for 6 months to prep and shoot a film, or even a no budget indie film, when you come back to commercials, you've lost all momentum. I mean, I did
again unless you're hit
4 films, unless you're hit. Yeah, and I had critical flops. It was like starting over each time, and I was making great headway. So I said in commercials, and I told myself in 2000. It was like 2003 or 4. Okay, I'm just going to I let my agent go. I said, I'm not resigning. It's better for you if I don't resign, because I'm not going to do another movie. So I'm going to do commercials for 3 years. And that turned into like 17 years. And that 3-year period, just I woke up, like when you're doing 4 and 5 day Eggo waffle shoots, making serious bank. And
it was
04 from 04 to 07, quarterly 5-day shoots, you're making more than if you were doing a Miramax feature, really.
Oh, no question. There was much more money in commercials before. Yeah. Much more. And did you do music videos as well? You did some music videos as well?
Never did. I've done like a couple in my life for friends that
favors.
You would never, but no, never cracked the music video thing. I mean, my son cranks out music videos and he's got it down. The problem that I'm talking to him about, he'll be 25, he's 24. Ben Brady.tv, he's over delivering. Like, they don't care if you show up at the A7 and you're bringing out the red and the Steadicam, and some of the rap guys don't know the difference if you did it with your iPhone. Like, you could actually pocket more money. But he said, throwing my own philosophy back in my face, it's for the real. And I'll always say, invest in your reel over the revenue.
Oh, there's no question, because I know, look, if he's hustling music videos right now in LA, God bless him, because that's a hustle.
He's got a country video coming up. He's done a gospel video that crushed it. A handful of, these up and coming hip hop guys with, millions of views.
But those budgets, but those budgets, are you looking at 2,500, 5,000 if you're lucky?
I can't speak for him, but it's between 5 and 15 on some.
Yeah, so and he's working at the upper echelon of music videos right now.
Yeah,
if that's the case, because I remembered when I did a run of like 2 years of music videos here in LA, and the budgets were just And that's directing.
Wait, just what? Just good or bad?
No, it's horrible.
Okay.
Because but the only way I made money was direct, produce, and did all the post. So I was able to combine it all as a package deal, and that's how I got gigs. I got gigs on, and actually my budgets were much. I actually was doing $50,000 to $80,000 budget music videos, but they were
that's a good budget.
Yeah, but they were like for Comedy Central, and it was for a big stand-up guy, and he was doing music videos for his stand-up special, and it was like it all kind of amortized out. It wasn't a straight up music video. It was kind of like a combination of commercial music video and all that kind of stuff. But those budgets were insane.
I did one stand-up comedy special for Maria Bamford. I'm really proud of, called the Special, where she performed in her house for her parents.
Oh, that's amazing.
And we did it for it's a now defunct website called chill.com.
Yeah, I remember that one.
And Chill froze. So
but
we made it on the cheap, and then she got the rights back and sold it to Netflix, and it was a huge hit. And she actually sent me a personal check after the sale to Netflix, because we made it for the website.
Yeah.
And she goes, "No, I know you called in a lot of favors. I know you did it, on the cheap, and we put all the money into the special."
Sure.
And she goes, that was, didn't ask for anything, and I just love that.
That's amazing.
But I don't think it made me. The reason I'm telling you is I don't think now, like music videos, I don't think there's a market for stand-up specials.
Because I directed a stand-up special a couple years ago, and we did it at the, where is it? At
Dynasty Typewriter?
No, the comedy. Is it the Comedy Store? Not the Comedy Store. Not the Comedy Store. Next, keep going. What's the other ones? Improv. I think we did it at the Improv, and we did like one of those little small rooms that they had, and it was very intimate and
Annex, Improv Annex.
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, it was that side. It might not be the Improv. It might be one of the other ones, but it was one of those big ones that we did, and we did it. We shot it all. We shot it with some black magics, and we had some cranes and all that stuff. We shot it out in one night, two performances. Boom, boom, boom. Yeah, I edited it. Yeah, I edited it, put it all together. I think it got sold to a distributor who has not haven't received any. No, not yet. This is prior to my experience in the distribution realm, everyone listening. So that's why I have firsthand experience on getting screwed multiple times by distributors.
I'm blanking on the name, but Taylor
Swift.
No. He's a magician comedian.
Okay.
And I interviewed him for my podcast, Respect the Process, like a week after I interviewed you.
Okay.
And I had just self-distributed two of my documentaries before getting distribution. Mm-hmm. In fact, that's the big secret there is you can self-distribute and still get a distributor and get on. Like I am Road Comic. I did myself for $5 and then got a distributor with Comedy Dynamics who got it on Netflix and Hulu with an ad rev deal. I saw my own commercials during the Hulu version with commercials plugged in. Mm-hmm. I saw my own Dodge commercials play during my film, and the budget for the movie was less than lunch for the 3-day Dodge shoot.
So you basically, that's when the space-time continuum exploded in your mind. When you're watching your own movie, when your commercial comes up on your own movie. By the way, how was your experience with them? Have you been paid?
I was paid. Not without some, emails like, "Hey, it's been a while. Hey, I haven't heard from you guys in a while." And they always answered. They always came back.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you,
Taylor Hughes was the magician. And after I interviewed you and I was talking to him, I said, based on my experience, you need to self-distribute your own comedy magic special.
Absolutely.
He did it at the Dynasty Typewriter. He put it on like Vimeo on demand.
Sure.
And I said, even if it serves as a publicity tool, forget the money, but you will make money rather than sitting around in COVID with nothing. And then he got it on Amazon Prime.
Mm-hmm. And you'll make something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I am a disciple of the indie film hustle.
I appreciate that.
I mean, anyone should do it. And especially if you know going in, like I wish I knew going in with some of my indie films, my documentaries, that I was going to do that. But because now I tell anybody doing a doc, tourniquet on spending.
Absolutely.
Crank that tourniquet on your spending and don't. And I would even now do Zoom calls, whereas 6 months ago I would have gone, no, you got to fly to
absolutely
Detroit and get the interview. Now I would just record the Zoom because the viewer is used to it.
Or you could at least even, worst case scenario, you could send them a small camera, have them set it up, and still do the Zoom interview, but have them set up a camera and film themselves in a higher res.
That's genius.
I mean, that's what news organizations are doing right now. So they, set somebody up or hire someone local to kind of just go and set things up or something along those lines. Much easier, much easier, much more cost effective to do it. I'm going to give you, I wanted to give you a quick LA story because I think you'll find this funny. And then after this LA story, then we'll wrap it up because I don't want to take up any more of your time, sir. I know you're a busy man. I appreciate your time on here. But when I moved to it's such an LA story. So I moved to a townhouse here in LA, and across the hall from my townhouse, there's this guy that I kept looking at. He's like, he looks familiar. Who is this guy? And I couldn't look him up. I didn't know how to look him up. So I was like, this guy he's not an actor though. But I've seen him a lot. And we're going back 12 years or so. And then I bump into him, groceries or something like that out in the courtyard. And I'm like, hey, how you doing? And I look at his face. I was like, is that? And he goes, hi, my name is Cato. And I'm like, are you Cato Kalin? Cato Kalin lived across the hall from me. So I had my post suite in my extra bedroom in my house. So I would have clients come over all the time. And I remember I had this one filmmaker who was in Titanic. He had a bit part in Titanic, and we were working on some projects. And he was he couldn't keep himself in his seat. He would look out the window waiting to see if Cato would walk out. He was freaked out that Cato Kalin lived across the nicest guy, by the way. Cato was the sweetest, nicest guy ever. But that's such an LA story.
That's funny. Now, to that point, when I have clients from Chicago come out, for some, whatever the product is, the client, not so much the agency people, but I do it to them if I can. They kind of know my trick. But we're at the client dinner, we're in Santa Monica or Beverly Hills at a steakhouse or something.
Yeah.
I will have so many, you just missed Gina Davis. Or if I go to the back, Jude Law was in the urinal next to me. Really?
Oh my God.
Yes.
Tom Cruise. And you just missed Tom Cruise.
and you'll hear no, last night the director saw Michael Keaton at the salad bar
with Jack Nicholson. Yeah. It was crazy.
They were talking Joker Batman.
And they buy it. And that's great.
Yeah.
That's good times. So you have this amazing masterclass in regards to commercial directing. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh my goodness. Well, commercial directing boot camp is an in-person thing, and it's sold out for October 10th.
You're still doing it? Are you still doing it? Are you doing it this year?
Yeah. I did it in January, then COVID hit, so I had one in June, and it was about half sold out when COVID hit in March. So I pushed it. Other than the election of Donald Trump, I've never been so wrong. I thought, by the time late June comes around, we'll be over this COVID.
This is just a passing fad.
This is in March. I'm like, wait, how long is it going to last?
They can't shut down the entire world. That's insanity.
In mid-March, I had two juicy gigs. A one-day shoot for some medicine. It was basically the mom in the driveway taking the pill,
Yeah.
Or feeling good because she'd already taken the pill. A bunch of animation that someone else would do, and then an end shot. And that's where, like we said, the director, you don't get on the phone and change it to a big sweeping opening shot from the driveway with a crane. You go, yep, I can do this and I'll get a good performance.
Yeah.
So I have that job. Then there was this other multi-day job, and I was like, that's going to drive me through the summer. Monday morning, they're gone with COVID. And I'm sitting around and I go, I can't do the boot camp, or maybe I can, but I'll just do a masterclass. So I cherry picked some of the lessons, and I did a 2-hour thing in my office. My son, Ben, shot it for me, and I edited it. And a couple weeks later in April, I put it out, and it has been very helpful to a lot of filmmakers.
Great.
So it's commercial directing film. I put everything at Commercial Directing Film School. So commercialdirectingmasterclass.com or Commercial Directing Film School. And it's, I put it up on a teaching platform, and you see behind the scenes that I've had shot with my son as he grew up filmmaking. I would say, shoot me directing. I talk to the camera like while I'm directing from a couple years ago, a national Toyota commercial. There's some me directing Kathryn Hahn in the Chrysler minivan stuff. And I knew someday it would be valuable behind the scenes footage. So I don't think there's much like this with, a working commercial director showing you this kind of behind the scenes.
Right.
There's a lot of great products out there. There's how to do music videos.
But I really haven't seen any. I really haven't seen much on commercial directing. And I mean, I actually went to the workshops in Maine.
Those are great.
So I actually went there to take a commercial directing course back in the 90s when I was starting to get my commercial reel going. And they had the guy from the client from the biggest. They buy Procter and Gamble. So they had that come in and by the way, everybody, Procter and Gamble, I don't know if they still do, but they spent the most on commercials ever than anybody else by far.
Yes, that is true.
Mm-hmm.
P&G, and they have all your famous products.
Mm-hmm. Everything.
They are also so inclusive of people from underrepresented populations. They were the first to really say, like, hey, why don't we put a same-sex couple in our toothpaste commercial?
That's pretty ballsy. That's pretty ballsy for a company that size.
Can it be a black couple? Why does it have to be a white couple all the time? Like, they really are forward-thinking with inclusion.
Good.
Before, the murders in 2020. I mean, they've been doing this for years. So I put out the masterclass. It's doing great. I've had about 350 students from 8 different countries. And can I throw out a deal for your listeners?
Sure, of course.
So you go to Commercial Directing Film School, and there's links to everything. My podcast, book, blah, blah, blah. But if you type in, when you sign up for Commercial Directing Masterclass, and you're about to check out, and it's $249 fucking dollars. Why don't you use the code NIFTY50 and take $50 off of that?
Nice. Well played, sir. Well played. I'll put that link in the show notes. And can
I tell you one more thing?
Yeah.
So on Thursday night,
right,
I had another. No, you don't know this one.
Okay.
I had another behind the scenes that I couldn't put into the masterclass about how to direct Cats. So I had
not Cats the movie.
No. Cats as in
the animal,
feline critters.
Yes,
because I've directed about 7 or 8 cat commercials.
Because you're the cat
costume.
You're the cat guy.
To those people, I'm the cat guy.
You're the cat guy. You're the cat guy.
I do dogs, but I really do cats. Alpacas, but not llamas. And so I put up a mini course for a lower, like, entry price, and it's directing cats with a 17-minute behind the scenes. Same thing. I'm talking to the camera, and here's why it's worth it just for this. I put in the original agency brief that they sent to the directors, and then I put my treatment so you can download both, and then the production notes and the script notes and all that. So you really see a case study. And if you can direct cats, you can direct anything. So, and then if by the end of that course, I give you the nifty 50 code. Like if you take that course and then you take the other one, it's like getting it free because I got the code, the nifty 50 code.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And now, didn't you just release a feature film, sir?
So people on YouTube were talking about my first film, Dill Scallion, The Country Spinal Tap. And last night, someone tweeted, it's on YouTube. Someone like 4 or 5 days ago, put it on YouTube. And I wrote the guy, I go, hey, I was going to put it up, but it's my copyright. I have the publishing to the music, which I don't know if you teach that, Alex, but if you can control I made more money off the publishing of that movie, owning the music in the movie, the original music, than the movie itself.
Well, with that said, though, in today's world, publishing is not what it used to be, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. It's a little different nowadays. Yeah. But yes, if you could own publishing, that's the thing. Absolutely.
So I asked the guy to take it down, which I think he did. And I put it on Vimeo. So it's, Vimeo on demand /Dill Scallion. And I put it up for rent $1.99, buy it for $3.99. I'm going to get up 100% of whatever comes in to St. Jude Children's Hospital because it's a 20-year-old film. I wanted to put it up for free, but if there's a chance to help one of my favorite charities, why not?
Sure.
So there's no discount there. You're going to spend $2 and hopefully we can make a few $1,000.
That's awesome.
Over the next few weeks.
I will put that in the show notes as well. Now, I'm going to ask you a few questions I ask all my guests. What advice would you give a filmmaker trying to break into the commercial business today?
Study advertising the way you study filmmaking.
Watch,
you know how to tell this. Yeah, you know how to tell a story in 30 seconds versus just some really cool shots. And I would also say, don't start your shoot day with the wide shot because it barely makes the commercial. And it takes so much effort to plan.
So right. I've shot so many wide shots that never ever make it.
That's in my book, Commercial Directing Voodoo, $10 on Amazon.
Sir, you're hustling, baby. I love it.
I'm like Mr. Haney from Green Acres, if you want a dated reference.
Oh, man.
It's like a Bedouin bazaar on my website.
Holy cow.
Yeah, the DP and the AD will always want to start with the wide shot. And then the agency will be picking apart the wide shot. I don't like that plant. I don't like this. I don't like the way she says that in the middle of the spot. And you're like, no, I'm just letting the actors do it. It's never going to be in the cut. I just want the actors to do the whole script. Well, but could she say it this way? Can we try an alt line? No, the alt line isn't funny in the wide shot. So if you start your day, you're going to be like 45 minutes late because you fucked around on this wide shot. And then in the edit bay, the editor goes, we don't even need the wide shot.
Well, that's gone. All right. Now, what is the lesson that took you the longest to learn, whether in the film industry or in life?
What is the
lesson? What lesson that took you the longest to learn, whether in the film biz or in life?
It's we, not me.
Amen. Very, very true. And I'll ask you 3 of your favorite films of all time and 3 of your favorite commercials of all time.
That's so hard because on any given day.
Today's that day. Yeah. So whatever today is, what are those 3 films and 3 commercials if you can think of them?
Yeah. I mean, film-wise, I always love Mel Brooks' History of the World.
Is this part 2?
It's part 2, yeah.
Yes, okay.
I always laugh at that, and it's silly and it's probably outdated style of humor. Mm-hmm. But I love that. Best in Show, I always laugh at.
Of course.
I mean, that's like, it's so sly. And,
so good.
And, there's a film called Blue in the trilogy of...
Of course, yeah. Krzysztof Kieslowski. Yeah, it's amazing.
I've seen that film. When I say I've seen it 25 times, It's not a comedy.
Not by any stretch. It's a moving painting. It's a moving painting. It's amazing.
It's just so beautiful.
I love Red. Like I love Red.
Yeah.
Red. Iran Jacob was just, oh my God. She was amazing in that. Both those films. Amazing. Juliette Binoche is in Blue, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. I think she's also, is she in, what was the one that
Double Life.
Stewart was in with the clouds? It's like the clouds of Saint Laurent.
I don't remember that one. I don't remember that one. And then 3 commercials that kind of stay in your head, because I've got a few in my head that I and they're all from the same group of directors.
Wow, I mean, I watched so many commercials.
Is there anything that stuck out?
Yeah, well, my wife's first spec spot for Bridgestone tires, where we rented the location that has the Michael Bay tree, called a boy in his tire, and we shot. It was the last of the film days 10 years ago, and it got her shortlisted at Cannes, at the advertising Cannes, not the real Cannes.
Mm-hmm.
And that spot is so beautiful, and it's my wife. It was my wife's entry into the marketplace.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it got a lot of press, and so that's near and dear. That's like a personal one. You're asking for ones that people would know.
I'll tell you a couple and see if you could. Yeah. So Aaron Burr, Michael Bay,
classic.
Aaron Burr. I mean, and a lot of people crap on Michael Bay, and I'm the first to say that, you know, other than The Rock, Bad Boys, and Armageddon, because Armageddon is just fun. There's a handful of movies that, you know, that he's not the greatest storyteller, but visually, he changed the game. Action movies changed after Bad Boys and The Rock, like completely. Like everybody's tried to beat Michael Bay. So I'm going to say Aaron Burr. I'm going to say there was a Levi commercial that David Fincher did with Claire what's her name? Claire from Meet Joe Black, which is the one that there's like at last, that whole spot was amazing. And I'm not sure if it was Bay or if it was Spike Jonze, but did you ever remember it was super mint green commercial where they were going to they were like moving the camera, like they were about to like do some sort of surgery, and they're sitting, like he's sitting in this chair, this kid's sitting in this chair, and all the doctors around and like moving the camera, and the camera's like angling in, like they're going to shoot something into this kid's face. And all of a sudden the camera just goes whoosh, and like snaps like a stapler, and it leaves one of those little Levi divots like off the Levi
funny
on his nose. He goes stylish since 1950 something or whatever it is. And I think it was either Spike Jonze or Fincher on that one. I remember. But those are 3 that I remember.
Jason Momoa in Rocket Mortgage for the Super Bowl.
Oh, so good. Oh, my God.
He ripped off his face. And
so
I know the creative team, and I know the effects team.
Oh, so good.
That was also, the effects were also the guys that did the Ego suit.
Back, and we're circling back to the Egos.
But when when you have a connection to something.
Yeah.
And Michael Corbet, who was a creative director that went over to work for Rocket Mortgage, that was his first spot as in-house creative director. And then, the guys at Legacy Effects, formerly Stan Winston, when you see they all work, you're like, I know these guys. And I loved the spot before I even saw that.
And it was great. And I don't know if you saw the meme that was flying around Facebook and Instagram, where it was a picture of Jason Momoa in that spot when he has like balding, his arms are really thin, and he looks horrible. And on the top of it, there's a picture of him, Aquaman. And he goes, shooting 4K on your iPhone, shooting 4K on a Red. It was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Now, Jordan, where can people find you?
That's 2.
Okay.
Third is Geico Whale by the Pelorian Brothers, where a guy goes into the belly of the whale, and another guy comes in his kayak, and they're in this, it's clearly a set, and then another guy comes in and they're like, what the fuck is happening? And the guy's like, I just saved 15%, my car insurance. So I think that's a really fun one. I'll send you a link.
Send me a link. I'd love to see that one. And where can people find you, Jordan?
I would say On Twitter, it's that Jordan Brady.
Mm-hmm.
Instagram, that Jordan Brady. I'm pretty good on Instagram these days. That took a little learning. I am not on TikTok. I don't know if I have the bandwidth.
No, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it.
I don't have the
fine.
bandwidth. But Commercial Directing Film School is where I would send people, because at Commercial Directing Film School, I got the masterclass and the cats and the boot camp and the book and the podcast. And I have a hot sauce called Oh So Delicious Hot Sauce.
Obviously.
Where we give, because that was the twist, right? That was the pivot, as they say. And we give $1 from every bottle of hot sauce to nationalmilitaryfamilies.org, which is a great charity helping military families and veterans reunite after service. They have camps for kids, like your mom's in Afghanistan or your dad's in, Iwo Jima or somewhere. These kids are left alone. The kids pay the price. So we give $1 per bottle to that charity, and everything is at Commercial Directing Film School.
My friend, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on the show.
It's so fun. I can't believe it. Thank you.
I know. I mean, it's we could talk for again another few hours, I'm sure. But I hope this has helped a few filmmakers understand the world of commercial directing, because I know a lot of them are like, hey, maybe I should just do some commercials. And you know what? There's a thing. It's a thing. It's a thing.
You don't want to dabble.
You can't dabble in commercials. You might be able to dabble in music videos, maybe, but commercials is just a little bit bigger.
You might want to commit, and it'll pay off in experience when you go to do your feature.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I was a much better director because of all the time I spent on set as a commercial director, and by the time I did my first real narrative stuff, I just knew how to run a set. It was really, really a great experience. But unlike you and me, today, these kids, they could just go on Shoot and they could just edit on their laptops. And I had to go uphill barefoot in the snow to edit on an Avid on a Quadra 750 with 33 megabytes, a Quadra 350 with 33 megahertz, of screaming power back in the day.
Sure,
with my
Video Vision rat tail.
Yes, with 15 SCSI drives hooked up to get a gig.
You are old. Hey, and thank you for this podcast and all the information. And, I listened to the show, and I know your take on how distributors can really, like, I had a distributor just wanted the fee. Just like, even like, did I have weed? Like, should you be selling my film? And you position it in a positive way. You don't just, when I listen to the show, you give us the warning shot over the bow, but you have solutions for people.
Right.
How to take charge of their career, how to build an audience. And I admire it, man. I am of your school of thought. And I just think what you're doing and sharing the knowledge is really cool.
I appreciate it. Look, it's distribution specifically, I think is such a treacherous part of the filmmaking journey. It really is. And it is predatory and it's a little rough, but I try to shine some light, and sometimes I might get a little negative, but unfortunately I always tell people, I'd rather you hear it from me than lose your film.
Yeah.
For 5 years. I'd rather you hear me going, dude, you got to do this, this, and this. If you don't, you're going to get taken advantage of. So I try to do the best I can, but I really do appreciate that. And I appreciate what you're doing with your podcast as well. Your podcast is pretty awesome and pretty funny and really entertaining. And if anybody wants to know more about commercial directing, I would definitely recommend you listening to Jordan's podcast. And I will have that in the show notes as well. Jordan,
thank you. Yeah, very accessible too. I mean, you email, DM me. I'm not hiding, in the hills.
We might. Well, actually, we are now. Actually, we are hiding in the hills now. But Jordan, thank you again for being on the show, brother. I appreciate it, man.
Talk to you later.